Alright, so what we're going to be looking at in this unit are committees that exist within Congress. Standing committees are committees that exist from one Congress to the next. So standing committees always exist. Standing committees are places where similar bills are sent for analysis and debate. So if you're in a specific type of standing committee, you're going to hear the same type of legislation over and over and over and over and over again. Alright, currently there are 19 standing committees in the House. House committees have between 10 and 75 members. Bills get their most consideration in these bodies. These are also the places where most bills die. So when we look at the standing committees both here in the House and then standing committees in the Senate as well, this is where they get the most consideration, but it's also where most bills never make it out of the committee process. Alright, the leading committees in the House are the Rules Committee and the Ways and Means Committee. Alright, the Rules Committee we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail here in just a few minutes, but the Ways and Means Committee is where all revenue bills start. So if you're ever talking about tax bills or anything like that, all of those start in the Ways and Means Committees, and they always start here. They have to originate here in the House. So when we look at the Senate, there are 17 standing committees in the Senate, and Senate committees have between 14 and 28 members. And they're going to have less members, obviously, because they have less people in the Senate. You're going to have a lot more people in House committees because there's a lot more people in the House. The big committee that you need to know about this with the Senate is the Judiciary Committee, because the Judiciary Committee is the committee that's going to approve presidential and judicial appointments. A joint committee. A joint committee is composed of members of both houses. Some joint committees are investigative in nature and issue reports to the House and the Senate. Some are routine groups. The big joint committee that you need to know is the Conference Committee. Alright, a Conference Committee is a temporary committee that gets together to compromise on a bill. The buzzword that you need to use here is reconcile, and we're going to see this when we look at how bills are passed in a later lesson. But after a bill has gone through both houses and has been approved in both and in the Senate, generally there's going to be a House version of the bill and a Senate version of the bill, and they're going to have different language. So generally a joint conference committee is tasked with having members of both the House and the Senate take the Senate version of the bill and the House version of the bill, and they do what is called reconciling the bills and making sure that the language in both the House version and the Senate version are the same. So they reconcile those bills, make sure that they're same. Each chamber votes on that again, and then it's sent to the President for final approval. But reconcile, just like appropriate, is another one of those buzzwords that you should be able to use appropriately in the class. Their jobs. Committees handle bills on particular policy matters, such as veteran affairs or foreign relations. Alright, so like I said before, these, especially standing committees, are going to say the same things over and over and over again. All committee chairpersons are chosen based upon seniority. So the longer that you've been in office, the more likely you are to be the chair of a committee. Alright, and the longer that you've been in office, the more likely you are to be appointed to the more important committees within Congress. Alright, a freshman representative is not going to get appointed to the Ways and Means Committee. They're not going to get appointed to the Rules Committee. Alright, they're going to be put at some more of those low-level ones. So the longer that you've been in office, the more likely you are to be in those important ones, and the more likely you are to be a chair of those. Seniority normally also determines which committee someone is assigned to, which is what we just talked about. The majority party holds the most seats in each standing committee, obviously because they're the majority, and these standing committees also have subcommittees, and each is responsible for a particular slice of the committee's overall workload. And within that bill process, and we'll talk about, like I said, talk about this later, that a bill can bounce around from committee to subcommittee to subcommittee quite a bit. Getting to the floor. So before a bill can ever be voted on, it actually has to get to the floor, and it has to come through committee. But before it can ever get to the floor, if it's in the House, it has to go through the House Rules Committee. Now the House Rules Committee is known as the traffic cop. And the reason it's called the traffic cop is because it has the power to either speed up legislation, delay legislation, or kill legislation. So, say the Democrats are trying to speed something through and they have enough support to maybe pass something, but the Republicans are the majority party within the House, and they obviously dominate the Rules Committee. So in that instance, they're going to want to either delay it or kill it. They're going to delay it if it's something that they want to show publicly that they don't support and that it doesn't have the support of the American people. Then they could delay it until they can sway a few more votes in their direction, and then vote so that they can show that they've defeated something. If they know that they can't defeat it and do that, then they would want to kill that measure. So they could just never let it get to the floor. Or if it's something that they find that they want to get passed, then they can speed that up and have it cut in line and get up to the front so that it's voted and put into effect so that they can look effective. In the Senate, the floor leader controls the appearance of the bills on the floor. Alright, so they are going to schedule the bills on what is called the calendar. Alright, so a bill cannot reach the floor in the Senate for a vote until the Senate floor leader says that that's okay. Alright, so you can see where in, say, the current circumstances within American government, that if you have one party in power in the House of Representatives and a different party in power in the Senate, where a bill could get through one chamber of Congress very, very easily, but never make it through the next one because of that conflicting ideologies that exist between the two parties. So that is what's led to a lot of the gridlock that currently exists within the American government. Alright. Another type of committee that exists is something known as the Select Committee. Select committees are special committees that are set up for a specific purpose and most often are only exist for a limited amount of time. So say when Congress decides that they are going to use their extremely valuable time to look at issues of steroids in baseball, because that's a select committee that's only going to exist for a short amount of time to look at a very specific special interest. They also threatened at one point to use a select committee to investigate the BCS and the NCAA football, which I guess we don't have to worry about anymore because the BCS has gone away. But this is, these are the things that select committees could look at. They also look at more important things, but those are some of the more trivial reasons why select committees have been formed.